When the world has got you down.
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alz, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here are your hosts, Susie Singer-Carter and me, Don Priest.
Hello, everybody. I'm Susie Singer-Carter, and welcome to Love Conquers Alz, the podcast all about Alzheimer's, caregivers, and long-term care, elder advocacy. And today I feel very vulnerable and naked because I don't have my sidekick Don here with me today. He's recovering from back injury and he's laid up, so I am taking it on today by myself, and hopefully it'll be good. But I think it'll be great because we have a great guest, and so that'll help. So I hope everybody. I want to thank everybody for listening to us, and it's really great because I see the numbers are going up, and we're just super excited and feel very validated that so many of you are consistently listening and sharing our conversations, which I think are getting. I thought they were great. I think they're getting even better and better. So really happy that you're here with us. We know there's a lot of podcasts out there, but we really endeavored to bring you the best information and the most valid information that we can, and have a lot of fun while we're at it. So without further ado, I have a question. I want to say to you this. I want to say, why, when we're looking for the perfect hotel, with the best amenities, with, the great views, everything, anywhere in the world, there's like so many sites you can go to, right, that you can rely on to get a great place. You can go to booking.com, you can go to Trivago, Expedia. So why is it so freaking difficult to find a reliable database with information about elder care homes, one that uses filters to help families do the same? With elder care, that's a big issue, right? So, I mean, you might be thinking, because I get pushed back all the time, Susie, there are sites that do that. They're all over the place, and I am aware of that. There are a lot of places that say they do that. But the point is how well do they do that? I know they're out there, but how reliable, how are they reliably presenting what is available? And that's something that's very hard to vet until you're in it, right? So, and when you're in it, you're usually in some sort of stress situation. You hadn't planned for it, and now you're scrambling to find a place for someone that you love very much, and that becomes very, very difficult. And how do you know that the rating that they're giving this place is authentic, right? You don't. You have to trust. So how do you do that? How do you trust these sites? What gives you that sense of peace? Because that is a sense of peace when you can find some place that you feel good about putting someone that you love very much in for a very long time, if not the rest of their life. That's a major issue. It was a major issue for me. I spent so much time shopping, going from place to place to place to look for a place when my mom finally had to move into assisted living. And it is daunting. It's depressing. It's hard. And if you don't have a pretty big tribe with you, it's even harder. So today's guest, Daniel Clarke, is the founder of ELDERado, which is a portal, an online site, which is an elder care navigational tool that provides the highest quality and most transparent information about every elder care home in Canada. And if I said that wrong, he's going to correct me. But let me just preface this by saying, why am I talking to somebody in Canada? Because this young, incredible human being is not just, his plans are to bring this kind of business model to everywhere in the world. And I think it's so important. And it takes somebody like this guy with so much passion and so much empathy and brilliance to do something like this. And I think it's important that we talk to him and hear him out and hear why he was motivated and moved to create ELDERado. And it all came from a personal experience, which is why all of us who are in advocacy or, we become, caregiver support, or we launch a site like ELDERado is because we've gone through it ourselves. And Daniel went through it with his grandma, Marnie Ellis, who was hospitalized with lupus, and it was a super stressful time for his family. And they were told that they needed to find long-term care. So they were at a loss, and I'm going to let him tell you the rest of the story because I'm going to invite him in. Hello, Daniel. So happy to have you here, Daniel.
Hi, Susie. Thanks for having me. So one correction I'll make is that right now we're not across Canada. We're just in Ontario. We have ambitions of being across Canada, but yeah, so that's kind of the start of my story. So when I wasn't involved in elder care or healthcare in any way, but I was really close with my grandparents. And on my mom's side, where as you alluded to, my grandma was diagnosed with lupus, and especially my mom, my aunt, my grandpa, they'd already been doing some research before my grandma reached the point where she was hospitalized. But when you're in it, you think that you're well prepared, and then when the time comes, you realize how much you still have to learn, or how difficult these situations can be to navigate. So my grandma was hospitalized. It was then in the hospital where they let us know it's not the right place for her, and she'd had some home care, and that it can be relatively inconsistent. So my grandma needed to move into either long-term care or assisted living, which basically up here in Canada, long-term care is government subsidized, whereas assisted living is completely private. And they match you with a social worker, or it could be a care coordinator, or they go by some different titles, but essentially their role is to help you navigate this process. The issue is that that person that they match you with, so let's call it the social worker that they match you with, their hands are largely tied, because they can give you a list of the long-term care homes, but they're not actually allowed to recommend or provide suggestions of any of the long-term care homes, because they're all government subsidized. They're all basically considered the same in the government's eyes, even though there's vast differences between them. So you just get this list of long-term care homes, and then for retirement homes or assisted living, because it's all private, they don't really provide any suggestions. So at the hospital, they had information about one local retirement home, but then it was largely left on the family to navigate what your options are. So you're already in a really stressful situation. You want to spend time with your loved one, but now you're having to run around to all these different homes. It's difficult to even know the list of homes that exist. And then from there, trying to figure out which ones are going to be the best fit, who has the care services you need, what's it going to cost. It was just a really, really stressful, really overwhelming situation. And something that's made matters worse where I am in Ontario is they introduced something called the More Beds, Better Care Act. So now, where typically in Canada, you don't pay for your time in the hospital, but they'll start charging you for the bed if you require some form of senior care. After 3 days, you start paying $400 a day, which for most people in Canada, you come and go from the hospital without ever getting a bill. So that's something that's become an even bigger shock to the system that my family didn't have to deal with, but now families have to deal with. So you're under this time crunch in order to navigate your options, and it's just a really difficult, murky system to try and navigate. Like, terms are different. Terms are used to describe the same thing. Even if you're going down the route of long-term care, just since I've been involved in the space, the name's changed 3 times. So, it just a couple of months ago, it's now called Ontario Health at Home that you deal with. Most people still know it as Home and Community Care Support Services, but the language is changing all the time. And it's just not something that we think about day to day. Not a lot of us think about like, oh, what are our options going to be for a long-term care or retirement home? So a lot of us wait until we need it. And that creates a lot of challenges, and unfortunately, it can lead to suboptimal outcomes for the family and the care service or the care home that you ultimately go with.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important to hear about what other countries are doing and other systems are doing, because we're all so very close. Like, yes, we're the same. It's like, Medicare and Medicaid takes care of long-term care, whereas, Medicaid really takes care of the living part of it. And then assisted living is not covered at all. So it's not subsidized by the government at all, and it's private pay. So it's very similar. And at the moment, like, we're looking for the panacea. Like, what is the right way to do this system? And I think it's super important to hear where other systems succeed and where they fail as well, because that can stop us from wasting time in a certain area, because a lot of solutions become performative because they just want people to think we're doing something. And now the public won't be annoying us, right? But we can't be satisfied with they're just doing something. We have to know that what they're doing is actually helping, right?
100%. You're completely right. And there's so many challenges up here. For example, we've got in Ontario about 70,000 long-term care beds, and there's over 40,000 people on the wait list. So, there's people who, and the wait list is always, it's triage. So it's kind of needs based. So the higher your needs, the higher up you are. So there's a lot of people who really need to be in long-term care, but because there's people who need to be in more critically, that they can't get in for years. And that creates all sorts of challenges. And then, up here, we have this big disparity between long-term care, which is government subsidized. So, for example, in a long-term care home in Ontario, for a private room, it's about $2,900. And for a basic room, it's just over $2,000. But so that's subsidized. But then if you're looking at retirement homes, and especially if you need assisted living, which is, if you have higher care needs, that's completely unsubsidized. So then the price discrepancy is huge. Like there's all sorts of people in assisted living who might be paying $7, $8, $10,000+. I've spoken to families that are spending over $20,000 a month. And, for one, who's got that kind of money? And also where there's just this gap in support, and there's a big push going on up here by the Ontario Retirement Community Association and some of their allies to make it that that retirement homes, you can get a tax credit. It's done in a couple other provinces, and it's worked quite successfully, especially in Quebec and in Canada, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot that needs to be done. There's not enough beds. There's not enough staff. And it's something that really needs to become a bigger focal point, because none of these changes happen quickly. Like having the government promise that by 2028 in Ontario, we're going to have 30,000 new long-term care beds. We're not even close. And in all honesty, we might be net down from where we were from when that announcement was made, because there's been a number of homes that have closed, and if these changes take a lot of time, and we've all seen the demographics. We know the number of baby boomers that are coming, and we need these changes we need more action taken sooner rather than later.
So true. Like, we're having one of my colleagues who's a filmmaker as well is doing a short film I'm going to go see about a horrible name, but it's called, it's about granny dumping is what they call it, because these are for people that don't have a family or support in any way, not even a assigned guardian, and they're just dropped off after a hospital stay on the street, with just to, I don't, it's we treat our dogs better, we treat our pets better, right? And in Canada, I'm sure it's the same in terms of the attention that this demographic gets because of ageism and ableism. Do you find that a big issue?
Yeah, well, and I don't know that it's always even intentional. Like, I think some of the issue is that when people are in this space, they do so much work, like helping take care of their loved ones. So even if you're in, the most amazing assisted living facility, there's still, there's a lot of stress involved. There's a lot of advocating that goes on. And I think that when you're in it, it's hard to advocate for the system as a whole because you're so busy advocating for your loved one. And then I think that by the time, when your loved one passes, that you're just so done with the system, you're so tired, you're so frustrated that you just want to get as far away from it as possible. And I think that's a big reason why there hasn't been the innovation in the space as there has been in some of the areas. Like, in a lot of ways, it's elder care is a lot more old fashioned than a number of the other systems. Just the fact that ELDERado is the first website in Ontario that even lists all the long term care and retirement homes together. Before that didn't even exist. You had to go to all these different sites to even know what your options were. And I think it's just because people get so frustrated when they're in it that they just want to get as far away as possible. And then when you're in it is when people really open their eyes up to like just how difficult of a situation it is. Because I think that for the most part as a society, we just try and avoid kind of thinking about like getting older, and because with getting older we start thinking about dying and loss and things like that no one likes thinking about. So like ageism can certainly be an element of it, but I think that there's a lot of good people that just want to they just want to be as far away from it when they don't have to be as possible.
No, I agree. People ask me all the time, how did you decide to do No Country for Old People? Because didn't you just want to just close the door and go back to your life, right? But I think that, for me, I couldn't not share what I learned because I would feel, for me, that's just me. And maybe it's because I'm a filmmaker and I thought I can do something about this. That's my sandbox, and let me try to at least share what I've learned, and hopefully it will do some good. I do think it will. I think people like you're 35, right? Is that how old you are?
Yeah.
And I think that's so great because it's people like you and your generation that if you're looking at it, that other people will, and you'll make it just natural. It's the same way we look at, care for children. It's natural. It's what we do. And it's the cycle of life. And what you're doing is just so powerful to have a voice in your generation. It's really meaningful, and I really applaud you for it. That's when I first met you. I was like, I love you so much. I love what you're doing. It's just incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you shared your sizzle reel with me for No Country for Old People, and it's such a powerful it's such a powerful watch, and I look forward to seeing the whole film when it's released, and I think that's part of it too is telling more stories, and what the stories like you have to share are very important, but then also something that we're trying to do with ELDERado, and part of the reason why we chose the name ELDERado is because ELDERado is the Mayan city of gold and prosperity, and
because you love Supertramp.
And so we do also want to share some of the more positive stories. So I volunteer in a long-term care home, and there's in the news all you hear is negative stories of neglect, of abuse, of a lack of funding, short staff, all these negative things. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot that needs to be improved about long-term care. But at the same time, there's people who are living their best lives in there, making the most of it. And we want to be able to share some of those stories too, not to diminish that, there's not things that need to be improved. There are, but I think when everything's negative, then, who wants to go into a long-term care home, and your entire perspective, all you've heard is these horror stories. And we also want to be able to share more of the positive stories, and try and kind of nudge things back in the right direction, because as much as there's a lot of reason to be critical, we want to provide some balance to the conversation, that it's not death's waiting room. There are people in there who are making the most out of what they have, and I get to see it when I love volunteering in the long-term care home, because some of the people you get to meet, and sometimes things are going on there that I don't love, but at the same time, you just try and take the positivity and kind of make the most of it.
I so agree with you. I agree with that 100%, because I think it's important for people to understand that there are people living their best life and enjoying their life there, and that we need to support that, right? So it's not like it's like you said, like it's like we're throwing them in the dungeon and locking the door and walking away. No, there's people. I mean, when I would go to visit my mom, I always tell the story about the cool group who were all in their 90s, who didn't have dementia for the most part, but they were the cool kids, right? And every time I come and sing with my mom or whatever, they'd always go, "Susie's singing, come on over." They'd all hang out. They'd go to dinner together. They were the cool group, and they were enjoying their life. And I enjoyed them so much, and I think that that's important to understand, that there is good life going on, and that a year to someone in their 90s is way longer than a year in someone in their 30s, right? Because it's more meaningful.
Absolutely,
so,
and people like that, they brighten up a residence so much. Like you can. I've been into a lot of long-term care and retirement homes in Ontario, and as much as the staff can make a big difference, the actual facility can make a big difference. The biggest thing that I find is it's the residents, and it's if there's residents in there who are welcoming, getting people involved, and things like that, then naturally those homes just feel homier. Like it feels like it's their home, as opposed to where hospitals have kind of that sterile feel to them, and like sometimes a long-term care home. And plenty of long-term care homes feel like an institution, but then there's also homes that you go into where you see that there's a lot of residents that just they bring a really upbeat vibe, and not that it should be up to the residents to have to kind of create that environment, but when that environment is there, then the people, the staff prefer it, the other residents prefer it. It's just a better environment. So that's something happiness. Exactly. So that's something that we want to do with ELDERado, is share more of those stories, because there's we certainly want to shine spotlights on areas where things need to be improved, but at the same time, because we try and educate people on the entire system, and we also want to share the more positive side. And then it also breaks down some of the fear that a lot of older adults have on going into long-term care or retirement home. Because, certainly if I just read the paper and that was my perspective on long-term care, there's not a chance I'd want to go there, because because you never read in the papers anything even neutral. Everything is really negative stories.
Right. But see, and for me, that comes down to ageism, because people don't really want to hear about older people. So I think if we can force, that's what I think. That's when I talk about ageism. I think it's that the public doesn't really want to acknowledge it because of their own fears, right? And so, and I think when you get to see these kinds of stories that are very inspiring, then it becomes, it's a positive, and so it becomes attractive. It becomes, compelling, and that's what we need more, more of, and less kind of stereotypical stories, but really just inspirational, aspirational. We should be able to aspire to be able to have that kind of life in our third chapter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's important, because we all get there, hope God willing. And so, I hope that I'm aspirational. I hope when I'm 90, I'm still doing hip hop, and I'm doing I'm enjoying my life, and I think that's what we're here for. We all are on borrowed time. It doesn't matter how old we are. So we don't know what we don't know. So we have to make the best of it.
Absolutely. My grandpa's 97 years old. He still lives at home on his own. A couple of weeks I was golfing with him, and his big thing, I really look up to my grandpa. I think he's one of the most admirable people I know or I've ever met. And his whole thing is he doesn't stop. So he goes to the gym every day. He's working on learning French. He exercises. He gets out and he tries to stay physically stimulated, mentally stimulated, and so that's very much something that I try and keep in mind is like keep going, like don't stop. And like I said, he's getting up there in years, but you would never guess it.
I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, one of my colleagues' dad is 90. No, he just turned 100. What am I talking about? I went to his 100th birthday at an assisted living, and he's a writer, and he still writes. And he's writing a new play. He's so incredible. We had the best birthday party at the assisted living, and he was like, one of the actresses that's in my other film, My Mom and the Girl, who lives there as well. Liz Torres, and we introduced them because I didn't know that she was living there and he was living there. Anyway, after we all spent like about 3 hours together, he walked by her with his cane. He goes, "I'll see you later."
Well, and I love that, and it's such a gift to get to grow old, and that's I absolutely love that. That's
I love
such
it
a great
too.
story.
We'll be right back.
I'm Peter, owner of Peter is Fan Photography, and I want to talk to you about something important, preserving memories. Time moves quickly, and before we know it, those we love may no longer be with us. For the last few years, I've taken complimentary professional headshots of seniors in a local retirement home, helping families capture the essence and personality of their loved ones through beautiful photos. I've seen firsthand how meaningful these images can be. When I photographed my own parents, I realized how powerful it is to have these lasting memories, photos that capture smiles, stories, and the unique spirit of the people we care about most. If your parents or loved ones are still with you, don't wait. These images can bring comfort and joy for years to come, whether it's for remembering silly moments or honoring family history. My message is simple. Get photos of your loved ones while you can. Hire a local photographer, use your camera, cell phone, whatever it takes. Just do it now. For more information, visit peterisfanphotography.com.
I have a couple questions for you. So these are the harder questions. So, when people, I've since learned from doing this documentary about how do you check on the ratings for long-term care in particular. And there's on our CMS, which is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, they have a compare, right? So you can go on there and there's ratings and da-da-da-da. But the issue is that they're self-reported, right? And the issue is that our rating system, these 5-star system, doesn't really reflect the truth because there's ways to manipulate the system. So how are you getting, I'm sure that happens in Ontario. How do you work around that, and what do you think would be a good solution for all of us to get those kinds of true ratings and make the standard, it is achievable, that they have to meet it, required, compensatory, they have to do it, whereas now there's ways to game the system.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So one of the things that we don't do is we don't actually rate any of the homes. So we collect information to help people make the most informed choice for themselves. And part of the reason why we did that is when I started ELDERado, first thing I did was I interviewed 80 families that had placed a loved one in long-term care retirement home in the previous year to learn, about their process, who was involved in the decision, how long it took them, and then also how their expectations have been met or not in reality. And one of the things that I learned from that is that there was instances where I heard from different families where they had a loved one in the same home and vastly different opinions of that home. So one of the things that was clear to me early on is that someone's care needs, their circumstances, even their ability to make friends within a home is going to drastically impact their opinion of it. So instead, what we try and do is pull as much useful information and try and make this the decision-making process as transparent as possible. So we do include in a listing, you can see the Google reviews. You can see how it's rated on Google. Also for long-term care homes, they report to the Canadian Institute for Health Information things like the percentage of residents who fell, the percentage of residents who have pressure sores and things like that. So that information has historically been somewhat difficult to access. So we put it all on the site. It's color coded so that you see not just how they're doing, but how they're doing versus all the other homes. But yeah, ultimately we don't assign a score to homes. We give you all the information so that then you can assess, this place is most likely to be the best fit. And then we still do recommend that people tour homes in person. So really what we want ELDERado to do is help you narrow down from, there's 1,400 elder care homes in Ontario, narrow it down to the, maybe 3 that are going to be the best fit, and then tour those 3 in person. But yeah, ultimately we don't actually provide, or at least at our current stage, we don't provide a rating. We just give you the filters and the information. You can access the inspection reports through ELDERado, and the languages of care that are available, the cultural designation. You can watch a video tour, see sample menus, activity calendars.
Amazing.
Things like that we provide to you, as opposed to saying, hey, this home is a 4.5 out of 5. This one's a 3 out of 5, just because different families, or different older adults, they'll have different opinions of various homes.
So that's excellent. So let's say once they go to ELDERado, when you're going in to tour your top 3. What do you think is the best way to do that? What would you recommend on a tour? What would you look at? I'll just give you something real quickly. I'll just say, like, one of the people that we interviewed, one of our experts for the documentary, said, if he was going to tour a place, like oftentimes, you'll go in as a family and you'll go in and see a really beautiful lobby, and you'll go, oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, look at the dining room. It's beautiful. Okay, done. And he, one of the things that he said was, like, I would go in and I'd say, can I just walk through the halls? Can I talk to some of your residents, right? And because if I saw that there was residents sitting there and there was nobody around and I couldn't see any, CNAs or anything, then I'm going to start wondering, am I just buying the lobby?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So there's a few things that, some of them are things that I picked on. Some of them are like kind of recommendations that have been given to me over time. So yeah, a few things. First is, because typically in the lobby, I find a lot of retirement homes, which for retirement homes in Ontario, though, those aren't government subsidized, so they're typically a little more expensive, but they're also nicer. So a lot of times they'll set up some sort of social area also in the lobby to try and kind of bring some life into it. So, are there people that are there or wherever has been designated as a kind of a non-mealtime kind of gathering place? Are there people there? Are they engaging with each other? That can be a good sign. Also, when the staff are walking by residents, do they know them by name? Which is awesome if they do. Even if they don't know them by name, are they kind of acknowledging? Are they acknowledging the residents? When you're away from the lobby, say you got to go to the bathroom, and try and go to the bathroom, not because it's really easy to make the bathrooms right at the front where most people would go really clean, but what's the cleanliness like elsewhere in the home? And if you have a chance to chat with any of the residents, that's not always going to be something that's possible, but just chatting to them, and not to, because they're probably not going to say like, hey, like, don't come here, but asking them about are there activities that they really enjoy, or should there be like certain things on the calendar they keep an eye out for, because if they can call out things that are coming up in the calendar, then that probably means that it's a home that is kind of more engaged and have better activities. Right. And then something that I'm a little more particular about is little details. So a lot of homes will post things like menus around or activity calendars. Are they current? Because if those sort of things aren't current, it's a small detail, but making sure that you get those sort of things right. And then the last thing I'd say is, typically, at least for retirement homes in Ontario, they'll offer that you can have lunch for free or something like that if you're going on a tour, and take advantage of that and try and schedule it so it's a time when when all the residents are eating as well, and then you can have a look around and what's it like in the dining room. Are people engaged with each other? Are they not? Is it is it just like kind of really quiet and solemn? Because maybe that's what you're looking for, and maybe you do want a retirement home that for your personality is a little bit more quiet, but it just gives you a feel for what you can expect when when you'd actually be a resident inside the home, and also realizing that it's probably during that visit going to be the best that it will be at any point. So just having a frame of reference that generally they're trying to make a good impression. So it's unlikely that it's going to be significantly better than what you experienced that day, just because they are trying to make a good impression on you.
That's such good advice. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Yes. Oh, and we do that too when they do invite you to have lunch when you go to tour, and I agree with you. Take them up on it, even if you're not hungry. Sit there and just see what is the community like, right? And then it also gives you a good opportunity to speak to some of the other residents. How you doing? What are you eating? Is it yummy? Do you like it? I got the. It gives you a chance to actually have a conversation that doesn't feel stilted. So I think that's great advice. I think that's great. And if
anyone's not quite sure on how to be able to start that conversation with someone at another table, like something that I like doing is, asking around some of the other tables, like, what's your favorite thing on the menu? Like, what would you suggest? And then that usually opens up to like, are you touring? Oh, what for? And then, that gives you an opening if, to have a wider conversation if you're interested. But so just ask people around, what do they recommend from the menu? And I typically find that there's a lot of people that are like quite eager and interested in engaging with you.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. That's really great. So I think. What do you think? I mean, I don't know in Ontario if they have. Do they allow animals? Do they have like those kinds of things?
So that is probably on our short list of new features to add, because some homes do allow like small pets. So like kind of dogs, cats, things like that. It really depends on the specific home. So they make the rules about that. But there are some homes that do allow small pets. There's even I was in a home in Oakville just a week or two ago, and not only do they allow small pets, but they've got a designated like pet washing room where either you can go in or a groomer can come in and to kind of give your dog or cat a spa day. So yeah, some homes do allow it. There's some homes here that are culturally designated. So that means that a lot of the residents will be from a particular culture, and then a lot of the food and activity are geared towards that. Are geared towards that culture, and for some people that's going to be a much better fit for them, especially when it comes to food. Like, that's something that I hear. I grew up in a very multicultural area, and food in elder care homes are something that becomes a big challenge. 'Cause it seems like breakfast is always the biggest challenge, because culturally there can be vastly different things that people eat for breakfast, and it's hard to someone who's in their golden years to suddenly try and say, you've been eating breakfast one way for the past 80 years, and now we're going to change that on you. Right. So yeah, being able to find like culturally designated homes, that's why it was really important to me that on ELDERado we have filters by language or by culture, because when I was speaking to my friends, it was just ridiculous that there was no easy way for them to find which homes either kind of spoke the language of their loved ones or were culturally designated. And I mean, something that I'm sure you and many of your listeners are aware of is that one of the early signs of dementia and Alzheimer's is losing second languages. So, if someone can receive care in their native tongue, then they can remain independent for much longer, which is typically going to lead to a much higher quality of life.
Oh, I love it. Those are little details that when you're in a stressed out situation, you might not think about, right? You might not think, like, if your family member loves animals, and like I know here there's some facilities like the one of them that my mother was in, they just had like animals that belonged to the facility, right? So they just ran around and they were part of the home. They were part of the community, and everybody loved them, And I think that if you are someone that is used to that, those are kind of things to look for. How open are they to that? How does it match what your lifestyle is? And maybe you don't like animals and you don't want them running around all over the place, right? So you do need to look at those kinds of things, the details, little details that mean a lot.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because so one of the reasons why so the pet filter is one of our most requested filters. Okay. And it's because it's not only people who want to have pets, but it's equally people who just don't like being around pets. And on the flip side, they aren't interested in, because something that can be easy to get lost, especially with all the news headlines, is that these are people's homes. This isn't just so, like, we are talking about people's homes, and so you want to feel comfortable in your own home. Like, imagine you hated dogs, and in your home where you're currently living, you're required to have a dog is going to live in your living room no matter what. Like, nobody would want to move into that house. And I think that's something that's really important to remember, is that these are homes, and we can get caught up in all the statistics of what it is, and you just see these large numbers and they're overwhelming. But at the end of the day, these are people who are looking for somewhere to live with their health, independence, and dignity, and it should be easier for them to find which home is going to be the best fit for their circumstances.
I just love you, Daniel. You've got it. You're so smart about this, and you have such a great perspective. You get it so well. Like, I didn't get it at 35. I didn't think about it. My mom was such a pistol, and I didn't think about it. My dad died very young in a plane crash, so I didn't really have. And my grandma everybody was kind of independent. They just kind of went, goodbye, I'm going. That's it. So I didn't really have experience with that. And it's so lovely that you have such a great, compassionate, notwithstanding intelligent perspective on these situations. No, it really does. It's very heartwarming and touching to me, because it is their home, and we can't forget that. It's their home, and nobody. Listen, you work your whole life, and you want to have a certain type of life, and now because of the cycle. and now you have more needs than anyone can handle. Okay, but let's make it as good, as wonderful as possible. And remember that these are individuals, and that these are not one size fits all.
Yeah, and exactly what you just said there, where we're talking people, they've worked their whole life. They've literally laid the infrastructure that we enjoy. They've fought battles so that we don't have to. And yeah, like I really think that deserve better. And I was very fortunate to grow up in a great family unit where where kind of always looked up to my grandparents. Like that was very much kind of part of our family unit, is kind of the patriarchs of the family, and part of it is just the stories that was always my angle for why I've always enjoyed kind of spending time with my grandparents, is the stories they have to tell, and things that they can share, and the perspective on what it was like when they were younger versus my age. And even with both my grandparents, both my grandpas served in the Navy, but where my grandpa, I've got one surviving grandparent, and I did some backpacking through Southeast Asia, and my grandpa was on a ship going through Southeast Asia, and kind of being able to share like what it was like in Hong Kong when he was there versus when I went, and some things like that. It's
priceless.
I didn't realize, it was really once I started losing grandparents that I realized, what an incredible source of joy that they can be, and all these great stories that they have. So I do have some regrets that I didn't kind of start sooner, but at the same time try and enjoy as much time as I have with my grandparents. And that's also part of the reason why I love getting to volunteer at a long-term care home, where I work in a gift shop, where it's kind of it's only open when volunteers are there, and most people just come in to chat, and you hear all these like great stories, or sometimes you're just somebody that they get to chat to, and I mean it's a great time, and I'd encourage anyone, like if you're looking for something to do, there's always there's great activities that they go on that they're always looking for volunteers for, and if you have the chance to get involved, then don't be shy. They'll be happy to have you.
100%. I always tell people, like, if you want to feel good about yourself, like, you'll just, first of all, you'll have such a blast, and you'll learn so much. And you're so appreciated, and like it's like. And the older you get, everybody looks younger to you. Well, I would walk in and they'd always go, "Wait, that's your daughter? Wait, how old are you?" And I go, "How old do you think I am? 22? Yes, I'm 20. How did you guess that?" Right? So if you want to, or like if I'm singing, they're like, "Oh my God, she sings incredible. She's like Barbara Streisand." I'm like, "I am really." They're just so kind and lovely, and you want to feel good about yourself. It's really, you're doing it for yourself as well. So don't think you're not.
100%. Like I tell people all the time, it's a selfish endeavor that I'm on, because I've seen what it's currently like, and like I want it to be better for my parents than it was for my grandparents, and I want it to be better for me. So that's we all have a goal of living a long, prosperous life, but at the same time, most of us are going to end up in some sort of elder care home. So, at that, why not work to make it the best that it can be, so that when you get there, it is, it's like Disneyland for older adults. It's just like the most incredible place possible.
Would you say it's like ELDERado?
That's it.
I want to say this to you. What's your grandpa's name? That's alive in 96.
Hugh Ellis.
So Hugh Ellis and Marnie, is that his wife?
Yeah.
They raised an incredible grandson.
Thank you.
You are incredible, and I thank them for that. I thank them for giving you such lovely values and curiosity, and compassion. So Daniel, I'm counting on you to keep going. Don't stop. Do what you're doing. Bring it on over here in America and everywhere else that needs this kind of, this kind of service, and we all do. So I am cheerleading you on. I know everyone else that's listening is cheerleading you on too. And
Thank you.
And I thank you. I can't wait to hear more about you and all the things you're going to be doing, because I know you're going to be doing a lot. You're very special.
Thank you. And one thing I can mention is, although we're not in the United States right now, and it's probably going to take some time before we're looking at expanding anywhere outside of Canada, there is a similar platform that follows a similar model called Purple Door Finders that is kind of expanding across the that's expanding across the states, and follows a lot of the same principles that we do.
Great.
So if somebody's looking, right now, that can be a resource that's really helpful, because you do have to be careful that there are a number of pay-to-list platforms, and there are, certain platforms that are known for, they'll just recommend because, they're being paid to recommend.
Exactly.
And ultimately, I know with my family, we wanted the best care for my grandma, not the best care of the people who were paying to be listed on a particular on a particular service. And yeah, so that's something that to me is really important. And of course, I want ELDERado to be big and successful, but I also want to make sure that all families are able to navigate this really challenging time as the best way possible, and whether it's with ELDERado or whether you're somewhere else with another solution that exists there, because families deserve better. Like it's such a stressful time when you're having to go through looking for elder care, and families deserve better resources.
Amen. So thank you. I think we'll put all that on the show notes, everybody. They'll have is it called Purple Doors? What is it?
Purple Door Finder, yeah.
Purple Door Finder, and of course ELDERado, of course Daniel Clarke, and everything else. You can reach out to him, and if you want to interview him or talk to him or just tell him how great he is, you could do that, because he deserves it. And I want to just tell you how much I love him again. And this whole show is about love, because love is powerful, love is contagious, and love conquers Alz. So thank you all for following. Please share if you like this show. Stay well. Take care of yourself. Have fun. And we'll see you and talk to you next time. Thanks.
I'm Angela Fairhurst, founder of Jerry Gadgets, a revolutionary solution for dementia care. Inspired by my personal journey caring for my mother with dementia, I developed patented sensory tools that engage loved ones, reduce anxiety, and create joyful moments without medication, providing much-needed relief for caregivers. Jerry Gadgets currently come in 3 silicone buckets with activities like flower arranging, shape sorting, and tactile fidgets, with more in development. Each Jerry Gadget is designed to stimulate the senses, fostering connection and communication, even at advanced stages of cognitive decline. Non-toxic, built to last, and dishwasher safe, Jerry Gadgets transform caregiving by promoting engagement, improving quality of life, and offering caregivers a respite from constant supervision. Discover how our innovative products can bring joy and meaningful interaction to your loved ones with dementia while easing the caregiver's burden. Visit jerrygadgets.com to learn more and start making every moment count.
For a limited time, you can get 20% off your next order of Jerry Gadgets by going to www.ssww.com, Jerry Gadgets for Dementia.